Hi, I'm Greg Lefebvre, creator and host of the Compulsive Storyteller podcast. Welcome to another segment of Pass the Mic, where once or twice a month we invite a talented guest with a great story to tell to join us on the pod to tell their story and or to chat about the art of storytelling. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Wayne Weber, a gifted storyteller. Wayne grew up in a unique family near Buffalo. His mom and twin sister were both married to brothers. After receiving a degree in liberal arts, he started as an iron worker, walking the beams of tall buildings. Most of his co-workers were Native Americans. Next, he landed a job making good money in the then new field of internet communications, making corporate boardrooms interactive. But having to finish a big job using new and untested equipment by the deadline of the next quarter's corporate board meeting proved to be overwhelming. The stress was a killer. So Wayne asked himself, what makes me happy? And realized that he had a passion for gardening. With his savings from his corporate job in his pocket, he headed for Florida and purchased a house with a big yard, where he then created a beautiful tropical garden with lots of palm trees, flowering plants, and water features. Within a year, he sold the house for twice what he paid for it. Then he did the same thing with 3 more houses and really made some money. But in 2008, the bottom fell out of the mortgage market, particularly in Florida, and Wayne lost everything. Now he's looking to jumpstart his next career. Hi, Wayne. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Greg and listeners.
So let's talk about one more thing. You and I are both lifelong compulsive storytellers. Our grandparents, our parents, and all of our siblings love to tell stories and jokes. So, Wayne, what do you think the pluses and minuses of being a compulsive storyteller are?
I think there's more minuses than pluses at the moment, but my father was a huge storyteller, and he was kind of schooled me in telling jokes and telling stories. And I don't know how and why, but most of my family talks too much, and me included. And the downside is I kind of monopolize conversations too often. But I do like telling stories. I like my own stories. My father always laughed at his own jokes.
But I think, looking at my compulsive storytelling, I think I definitely talk too much, and it's a disadvantage in some places. But when I was younger, I did these presentations for public art projects all over the country for 20, 30 years, and I think it was a plus there. I always warmed up the crowd with a story or a joke or both. Also, in any kind of sales situation, it's a great plus to be able to tell a story. And now it's funny, at this moment in history, corporations are embracing the whole way of getting their message through storytelling. And there's a lot of ads now about corporations to do that.
Yeah, I was a salesman most of my life, so I told lots of stories and a lot of presentations, and oftentimes it helped me communicate what I was trying to communicate to get some rapport going with people. In general, it was a good thing.
Cool. Well, I would have to agree with you that it's a good thing in some ways and a bad thing in others. So Wayne is going to start off with a couple of circus stories, and I'm going to follow him with a circus story of my own. So go ahead, Wayne, you're on.
Okay. I knew early on as a kid that I would leave my hometown and pretty much couldn't wait to do so. And I knew there was a bigger world out there because my father was very well schooled, self-educated largely, but he introduced me to every imaginable area of interest you could think of: mechanical, practical, art, music, construction. One of the first things that introduced me to the bigger world was we brought a small circus to my hometown. When I was a kid, they set up over at the school where my father was the principal, and he took me over there and I watched them pounding stakes and moving heavy tarps around and saw some of the performers starting to get ready, and it absolutely entranced me. I did end up going to the circus, which I don't remember much about. I was very young at that time, but I knew then I wanted to run away and join the circus and travel all over the world like these carny workers and performers that I was seeing at this little tiny circus in my hometown were doing. Fast forward about 27 years old, I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm riding my bicycle around downtown, which I did a lot, and I see elephants appear near the railroad tracks, and I thought, what in the world? Well, the circus was in town. They were unloading. St. Petersburg is the first stop after they leave Venice, Florida, where their wintering grounds are, and they train. And realized the circus was in town, gosh, I've got to go back later tonight and see this circus.
Now, this is Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, right?
Yeah, this is the A circus, the red circus, the main circus for Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. It was their first performance publicly after their wintering. And I was real excited about it. So I went down to the big top later on, stashed my bike, and I was determined to sneak in because I didn't want to just watch the circus from the bleachers. I wanted to see the clowns get in the clown car and the elephants, get put in position and all that kind of stuff. So I succeeded in sneaking in pretty well, and I'm lined up right behind the great big curtains that go out into the arena where they get the acts ready to go out. I had no idea what was coming next. All of a sudden, two gigantic Belgian workhorses were brought into the area I'm in, and everyone kind of stepped back a couple steps, and then they were giant horses. Then they brought in a lion in a cage and a tiger in a cage on wheels, big cages on wheels. The horses started getting very nervous. Their nostrils are flaring and their eyes are looking like saucers, and everybody takes another bunch of steps back because they're obviously staging something to happen. And out of nowhere comes this, I don't know what you'd call him, Superman, King Kong. He looked German, but he had blonde hair. He was built, bare-chested, strong, standing erect, obviously in charge of everything, carrying a stick which he's swagging around and knocking against things. He looked regal. He had every kind of, ornamentation on his shirt and his pants and his boots, and he was speaking to the lions and the tiger, the lion and the tiger, in a very commanding voice. And obviously, he was in charge. So next thing you know, he gets the tiger out of the cage, starts kind of knocking it with his stick to where he wants to get it. He gets the tiger to jump up on the back of one of the Belgian horses and sit on the back of the horse. Everybody, by this time, has backed off farther, and they're just in awe of this guy's command of what's going on. Next thing you know, he opens the lion cage, gets the lion out, gets the lion to hop up on the other horse, sit on the back of the horse. The horses are obviously nervous, but they're hanging in there. And then he stood up, kind of jumped up onto the horses, put one foot in each saddle of the horses. The two horses had like a saddle type arrangement on top. He put one foot in one on the other, so he's riding atop both horses, and the curtain opens and he marches out into this rapturous arena of people who are all going crazy, and none of us can believe that this lion and this tiger, and I don't remember any tethering, I didn't see any electric collar, I don't know how he did it. So he went all the way around the arena to great, applause. And to me, as an adult at 27-ish, it was as if my childhood dream had come to pass. This Superman Marvel comic hero, Roman emperor is, in all his regalia is going around the ring. And I had succeeded being in the right place at the right time and was just absolutely ecstatic over it. And it's one of the premier memories, visual memories of my life. I tell the story all the time. And I don't know if anybody can see it as well as I saw it, but it was phenomenal.
Cool. Good story. So I have a similar circus story. When I was young, my early 20s, actually late teens, I worked in a municipal auditorium in Utica, New York. And the auditorium had all sorts of different things happen in the main arena. They would have ice hockey. They would have monster trucks. Holiday on Ice was a touring thing, all kinds of touring shows. And one year, each year, the Hammond Morton Circus, which is a little tiny, two-bit circus, would come to town and set up in the auditorium. The first year I saw it, I was completely dazzled by the whole performance. There was this beautiful, sexy trapeze artist swinging around back and forth. They had women actually standing on the back end of a horse. And the horses were galloping around the circular ring, and they were dressed in these wild, sexy costumes. And I was completely wowed. And then, of course, they had a lion tamer like Wayne's circus, only not nearly as amazing. And they had elephants. What's interesting was I was totally taken by the circus. I was assigned to go downstairs in the bowels of the auditorium and watch the back doors, emergency exit doors, about 6 of them, so that people could rush out of the auditorium in the case of a problem. And I had to keep kids from sneaking into those doors. When I got downstairs in these hallways, I saw the trapeze artists up close, and they were gobbed with makeup and their kind of stained, crappy uniforms on, not uniforms, but dresses. and we held together with safety pins. And it was just really an interesting lesson in when you observe somebody afar and then when you examine them up close, it's a very different experience.
Yeah.
They had me sit, as I said, watching the back doors, and all the elephants that were going to be part of the show, and there was about 6 elephants, were chained in the room that I was watching the back doors in. I was a little nervous because they were 4 or 5 feet from me, but they were still very close. And at a certain point, one of the circus crew noticed that the largest elephant, the bull elephant, had an erection. And an erection in an elephant is like, we're talking like 5 feet, kind of curved. And so he went and got the lion tamer, elephant tamer guy, and he came back in. He had a stick with him, like a broomstick, and he just completely whacked the elephant's member really hard. And the elephant bellowed, and I'm not sure bellowed's the right word. Okay, well, the elephant screamed.
But I'm sure you would have reacted the same way.
All of the elephants rearranged themselves and pushed backwards away from the bull who was kind of thrashing around. And the 2 female elephants who were near me pushed all the way back, and their butts were against the door, and I was in between them on a flimsy folding chair. And then they moved together. And there was a moment at which my head was completely pinned and being smothered by these elephants. And I just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, who could imagine? And then things cooled off. They moved apart. They moved a little forward, and I was safe. And then they went into the ring, and everything seemed to be okay. The elephant had lost his erection, and the crowd didn't get to see any part of that. So that was the last time when the circus came to town that I accepted an assignment to guard the back door. That's my circus story.
Well, people don't believe most of my stories, even if they're 100% accurate, which I have to admit I embellish at times. But people don't always believe these stories. And when I hear other people tell stories like my stories, I think to myself, is that really true?
Yeah.
But there's just so many things that happen that are unbelievable. But I have to do a quick disclaimer, Greg. I really find chained elephants and animal training of wild animals for human entertainment disgusting.
Oh, I totally agree. 100% disgusting. Yeah.
And anything that gets abusive like that, I can't stand it. So I didn't want to glamorize that in any way, but the whole thing was just over the top.
I completely agree. So Wayne, I really appreciate your joining us on this whole podcast.
Thanks, Greg. Nice to speak with you.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. Are you ready to tell your own story on The Compulsive Storyteller? We're launching a new segment of guest storytelling, and we want to hear your stories. Email a voice recording to hello@thecompulsivestoryteller.com. I'll play selected stories on upcoming episodes. Try to be as clear as possible in your recording, and we reserve the right to lightly edit them for length and clarity. Leave your name or contact information in your voicemail or email, and let us know if you'd like the story to be anonymous. I can't wait to hear from you. The Compulsive Storyteller is now co-produced by Greg Lefebvre and Fadia Montserrat, who's also arranged the music and created the special effects. Emily Ramon does design, research, editing, and marketing. Peter Kokoma has made our theme music and for many seasons co-produced the show with me. If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Compulsive Storyteller, and we'd love to hear from you. This podcast is independently produced, so we really appreciate all your help and support. Share the show with your friends, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. You can also check out our website, thecompulsivestoryteller.com, for more information. Thanks for listening, and if you didn't like this one, the next one will be another story. All characters and events portrayed in this podcast are based on my truth, with some names and facts changed for privacy. The conversations and dialogues are based on my best memory, but are not word-for-word recreations.